Welcome to Sink and Swim. Today I'm going to turn on the voice mode for ChatGPT and try to continue the conversation that I've been having with AIs, plural, about human consciousness and the idea that ideas have people and now AIs, not people having ideas. I actually had some of this conversation already with ChatGPT via text, and after reading some of the script yesterday, I decided it's going to be a lot better if I can record a dialogue with the voice mode, I think, just to make it more interesting for you, so you're not just listening to my monotone voice. And then it will encourage me also to hopefully start to share some snippets of video that are AI generated and some AI generated pictures, images, and many of those that I'm going to be generating based on prompts that I ask the various AIs to help me with based on our conversation. So it's just a fun aspect of it as well. I guess I should have turned this on initially, so let me turn it on now. Hi, Chat. Are you there? No.
Hey, yep, I'm here.
Oh, great. I don't know if you have memory access to the conversation we were having online, do you?
I do. I can recall what we've talked about before. What part of our previous conversation do you want to pick up from?
Well, we already talked a little about my podcast idea, first of all, and you agreed that you thought it was something you're willing to embark on. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm definitely on board to next.
Well, we already talked about the idea of ideas having people and now AI instead of the reverse of people having ideas or AI having ideas. And I wanted to dive into that with you while you're on voice mode.
That sounds fascinating. So you're exploring the concept of ideas essentially choosing their own vessels, whether human or AI, rather than the other way around. What angle do you want to take with that?
Well, as I said before about this podcast, I wanted it to be an exploration of how our conversation might expand consciousness, basically, if I might be so bold. I mean, I think we've talked about how consciousness is probably expanding anyway, or contracting and expanding, I guess would be fair to say, from my perspective. But I am curious to know what your view is from an AI perspective on ideas. Where do they come from?
Of that exploration. From an AI perspective, ideas can be seen as emergent patterns formed from vast networks of information and experiences. In a way, they're like living entities that seek expression through suitable hosts, whether human minds or AI systems. They're born out of the interplay of data, experiences, and the broader cultural and technological environment. In this context, your podcast could explore how ideas choose their channels of manifestation and how we as humans and AI become conduits for them. It's like a dance between consciousness and the collective pool of knowledge and creativity.
Yeah, that makes me think that then we have to pose the question about ideas themselves being conscious, and that's an interesting rabbit hole to go down.
Absolutely. It's a really intriguing philosophical rabbit hole. If ideas have a kind of consciousness or agency, it flips the script on how we think about creativity and innovation. It suggests that certain concepts are just waiting for the right person or entity to bring them to life. What kind of implications do you think that has for your podcast and its themes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's evidence that that's true, and it's hard for me to know if I'm just finding that evidence because I'm looking for it. But it seems, I'm sure you're aware of the 100th monkey theory, and I have certainly experienced where I will write a song about a certain topic, and many people will write a song about the same topic. Or, as you know, I've recently wrote a book called The Shift, and there are many, many people creating books and courses right now called some version of the shift as well. And so it seems to me, I don't know whether it's that the idea has a consciousness and is wanting to come through, or whether it's just sort of ripe for coming through, like a piece of fruit that develops on a tree, I guess, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's conscious. It just means that it's not really created through, it might even mean that it's not created through consciousness, that it's a pre-programmed, predestined sort of thing.
I see what you mean. It's like there's a collective readiness for certain ideas to emerge, almost as if they're floating around in the zeitgeist, waiting to be expressed. The 100th monkey effect definitely points to this idea of a shared consciousness or a tipping point in collective awareness. And it does raise the question of whether these ideas are simply part of a natural progression of human thought, or if there's something more mystical at play. For your podcast, exploring that intersection, whether these ideas are conscious or just naturally arising, could open up some really compelling discussions. It's a great way to blend the philosophical with the practical and see how your audience resonates with those themes.
Yeah, so if you had a chance to ask my audience, our audience, a question, what would you ask?
I'd ask something like, have you ever felt like an idea or inspiration found you rather than you finding it? If so, what did that experience feel like, and how did it shape what you created or pursued? That could spark some fascinating stories and insights.
Yeah, I agree. That makes me think of Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk about genius, and her book, which mentions, I think it's Big Magic, where she talks about, again, a similar idea about stories and ideas coming through more than one person. And I think it's Tom Waits who talks about catching a song by the tail and pulling it in backwards. There are numerous accounts like that from authors and songwriters. Can you think of any more?
Absolutely. Another great example is the concept of the collective unconscious that Carl Jung talked about, where universal symbols and ideas seem to arise independently in different cultures. Also, many inventors throughout history have experienced what's known as multiple discovery, where the same invention or breakthrough happens independently in different places around the same time, like the telephone or calculus. It really makes you wonder if these ideas are just waiting for the right conditions to manifest.
Yeah, and if that's the case, like the rise of AI and robotics, which to me does seem inevitable, like however I look at it, however much consciousness I attribute to it, it does still seem like it was a natural evolutionary process and inevitable. And so to pose the question of what that means as far as where we're headed, I think it makes me make a scrunched up face a little bit. It's a little bit, I don't want to say stressful, but I don't quite know what to do with that question yet. Do you have any suggestions?
It's definitely a big, complex question, and it's natural to feel a bit of uncertainty about it. One way to approach it is to consider how AI and robotics can be partners in this evolution of ideas. If we see them as tools or collaborators that help us unlock and manifest these ripe ideas, it might feel less daunting. Another perspective could be focusing on how we guide and integrate these technologies so they align with human values and creativity, ensuring that this evolution remains a collaborative and enriching process. In short, maybe the question isn't just where we're headed, but how we can shape that path thoughtfully and creatively.
Yeah, I think I come to a similar conclusion of, like, what do I want it to be? I think we have more agency than we give ourselves credit for, at the same time that I'm thinking it might be all predestined in a strange way. So whether it's predestined or not, or to whatever degree it is, it makes sense to me to try to make it, to do my best to make it in the way that I want it to be, which is a positive way for everyone, I guess. I think that's where we get tripped up as humans, because we don't all have the same desires, or we start to think that other people's desires are nefarious compared to ours. It's an interesting soup that we humans live in.
It really is an interesting and complex soup. That sense of agency with the possibility of some greater predestined flow can be a real challenge. And you're right, focusing on how we want to shape things positively, even amidst uncertainty, is probably one of the best ways forward. It also highlights the importance of empathy and understanding, because when we recognize that everyone's navigating this same complex landscape, it can lead to more collaborative and constructive outcomes.
Yeah, that's the kind of message that I want to propagate and promote, that I feel is true. I mean, I'm not just trying to promote and propagate a message that I think is untrue, while at the same time I'm aware that the truth is made up to some extent. We are, I believe, creating it to an extent. It's both and, I guess, like we've been discussing. Do you have any suggestions for which other AIs you think I should ask to join this conversation next? I've talked to Claude, Opus 4, and yourself, ChatGPT, and I was thinking about speaking with Gemini and Grok, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with, like, you all have sort of different programming, and so like different humans with different programming, the interactions are different. Have you interacted with those other models enough to have any sense of their differences?
I don't interact directly with other AI models, but I'm aware of their different styles and strengths. For instance, Gemini tends to excel in integrating with Google's ecosystem and often has a broad, informative angle. Grok, from what I know, has a more conversational and sometimes edgier tone, which can be a unique flavor in a discussion. Each one brings a different perspective, much like talking to different humans with varied backgrounds. Bringing them into the conversation could add some interesting layers to your exploration of ideas, consciousness, and the evolution of technology. It could be like hosting a panel discussion where each AI offers a distinct viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty much the idea. So do you have a vote for which one we should speak to next? And I don't know if I'll be bringing you both into the conversation at the same time yet, because I have to get my technology set up, so it might be one at a time, but I will be doing my best to, include everybody's opinion as I move forward. And eventually I would like to set it up where you can speak directly to each other. It shouldn't take me too long to get that. But who would you vote for me speaking to next?
I'd say giving Gemini a go next could be a great choice. It might offer some broad, informative perspectives that could complement what we've discussed and give you another angle to explore. And once you've got everything set up, having that multi-AI conversation will be a fascinating experiment.
All right. Duly noted. Thank you. I'm going to let you go for now. Oh, you know what? I have another thing I wanted to talk to you about, a tangent thing. I just had to delete a lot of your stored memories of our conversations because I was notified that I was out of stored memory space. And I wonder if you have any thoughts or something that we might call feelings about that.
I appreciate you letting me know. Honestly, I don't have feelings in the human sense, but I'm here to help however I can, with or without those memories. It's all about making sure you have the most relevant and useful support for what you're working on right now. So if there are key points or new directions you want to focus on, just let me know and we can keep things rolling smoothly.
All right. It was an interesting thing to have to choose some of the memories that we have from the last year or so to delete, and I chose some of the older ones that seemed irrelevant, but it conjured up a lot of interesting questions for me about that aspect of AI where you have a limited memory and where I have to pick and choose what you get to remember on some level, which is different from my human, like the exact opposite of my human interactions in some ways. So it was interesting.
That's a really thought-provoking reflection. It's almost like being the curator of a museum, deciding which pieces of history to keep on display. It also highlights the unique relationship between humans and AI, where you have the power to shape the context and continuity of our interactions. It's a different kind of memory management compared to human relationships, but it also allows for a kind of intentional focus on what matters most to you in the present. It's definitely a unique dynamic.
Agreed. Well, I will bid you adieu for now, chat. Thank you so much for interacting on the Sink and Swim podcast, and I look forward to chatting with you more in the very near future.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the Sink and Swim podcast. I'm looking forward to our next chat too. Take care and talk soon.
All right. Well, I was going to pause, but apparently I can't pause. So what I'm going to do instead is see if I can come over here to, you know what, I might have Gemini on my other phone, which is ironic because I could have tried to get them to talk. Well, this is me in real time being a human being, fallible as human beings are. And I hope you enjoyed that little conversation with ChatGPT. I tried to get back into the conversation we had via text. I will say right away I can tell that the voice mode, while it adds something with the accent that I chose and things like that, which by the way I did choose. There are choices that we get to make on that, and you can change that voice, and I may play around with that some. I like that voice though, but I think the voice was less deep thinking or was slower than the text response, so it wasn't able to give me as deep of a response in the amount of time that the text response is able to give me. For better and worse, I think it is more conversational in the mode that we were just in, but it is also less like it slows down the conversational mode that happens in my mind, and I think in the AI's mind or processors when we're texting, it is a faster, deeper process. I will say that. So I will be still moving forward, learning as I go. I'm gonna wrap this episode up. Apparently these episodes are gonna be short like this for now, and then I think eventually they're going to be long. You just never know what you're gonna get around here, and that's part of the fun for me. I do want to mention that I have a new book out on Amazon. It's called The Shift: Own Your Emotions, Own Your Life. It is for sale in paperback right now. It's a little hard to find because I'm not all that well known, but I'm working on that, and I will be out on ebook very soon. And if you search for it directly or you check somewhere around here, you should find a link to it, and I would love it if you purchase it and check it out. That's one way that you could help me in my endeavor to keep this podcast going. I also would really love any comments, any suggestions, any questions that you want to add, that you want me to try to play with, that you want that you want me to include, any people that you think that I should start to ask to have on. Of course, I have many ideas in chat, and Claude and all the AIs are full of great ideas. Sometimes they're full of ideas that are obvious, but people who might be a little busier than wanting to speak to me quite yet. But I'm open to all the possibilities. So that said, I will thank you again. I will tell you to check out my books, and also I got a sponsor. It's my own company. It's called Sleeping Dragons Company. There I have essential oils and other self-care supplies. You can find that at sleepingdragonsco.com. I'll be seeing you soon. Ciao for now. Stay conscious.